Hey guys, Brent Hull, happy Wednesday. We got a design video and interior. So there's an effort to do a lot of moldings in this house, but it falls short. And if they just understood some classical principles, I think it could have unified and pulled everything together. So check it out, let me know what you think. Okay guys, want to talk about a interior. I haven't done many interiors, but I found this one and it really set me off, so I had to dig into it. One of my producers sent me this picture, which is kind of what's the problem with moldings today, and it was confusing. And you know, I tried to look a number of times at what was happening in this house, and basically what I discovered they did was that they've introduced a pedestal right here, and then they built these moldings up, and they've kind of built the crown, the capital of the column into the crown, okay? The thing that was confusing was, if this is my roof line, why is this one, okay, lower than this one? And what was happening? And it took me a while to kind of figure out, oh, they've got, you know, kind of one taller over here, and then this one steps down, but that crown's the same. And so it gets a little bit confusing. And you can see that kind of in new houses, the crown mold has become the king of moldings, and it's unfortunate, it's confusing. And I mean, just look at the base compared to the built up crowns, and notice that in the corners they even build up these crowns. You can see that at the top here, where they built up these crowns. The whole purpose of crown moldings and everything else, the whole purpose of any molding is meant and designed so that you can read it, so that you can see what's going on. The problem with these moldings today is that they just read as a bunch of busy lines, and it's hard to figure out what is going on. And so if I didn't have this cutaway, if I just showed that and I said, tell me what's going on here, or tell me what's going on here, there's no way. I mean, even these lines in the back, right? The only reason I know that what's happening with these moldings is because of where they turn back. And I was showing this to Richard, my buddy, Finished Carpentry TV. He goes, oh, that's the C22. I was like, the 22? He goes, that's a 22 series. And sure enough, if I go to this local molding catalog, there's the 22 series, okay? And that's this crown right there, okay? And then he goes, that's the 22 casing right there. So then we go to the 22 casing, you know, right? I got the 22 here, I got the 522, the C22. So it's one of those moldings that, you know, all of these moldings, all of these lines then are made up of two moldings. And so the challenge is for us trying to create classical spaces is moldings today, builders want to look like they've done a lot, even though they haven't. And so they've got two moldings, which if this were done classically would have been, you know, 4 or 5 moldings. So the first thing is that you need to be able to read moldings, okay? And moldings were designed and meant to be read. And so if I just did a simple bed mold, right, you can read that because the shapes aren't crazy. You know, you look at the edge and the profile of this, and this goes, you know, it's convex cove. It's just a bunch of bumps and bruises happening here. There's no order, there's no symmetry. If this is a traditional thing, you'd have had a very simple molding, a long flat space, maybe a step down, and then maybe a bead, right? And so all of this would have been simplified into, you know, 3 steps so that it didn't look so crazy. And so the challenge with moldings today, and my moldings go here, is that then, you know, let's say we do a classical cornice, okay, so there's your corona. So now I've got a crown at the top, I've got my little corona, step back, and there's what a classical cornice looks like. And when this is drawn out, it's very easy to read, okay, because there's pauses. The shapes that are here are actually fairly simple, and so it doesn't get too busy. And so, you know, part of the problem and part of the challenge on these moldings is that it just gets so busy. The other piece that happens is that really in a classical interior, the moldings are used to unify the space, and they're used to draw elements together. And I want to point out that, you know, that we've got a door here with a panel, okay? We've got a side light that's really tall, okay? You know, so we've got, you know, a pedestal here, a low thing here, a high thing here, and there's no chair rail, a lot of crown, very small base, very small door casings, and there's no unification here. And so what I did was I just changed the proportions and changed the details of this so that it would have a little bit more of a classical story. Kept this pedestal. I've actually lowered everything. These pedestals are up here. I'm actually down here. So I'm, in a box that's, 26, 28 inches high, not 32, not 36. So that gives me room for my column, and then I've got a classical entablature, frieze, and cornice, okay? So once I establish that form, I draw it over to this wall, right, and I engage my pilaster. I can still do my architrave and frieze, and then the cornice, I'm back to the same crown. So I am building up the same kind of crown importance that this client wants, this builder wanted, but I'm doing it with more classical moldings. Now what I'm doing is I'm also going to begin to use this height and this form to start tying things together. And so you'll notice there's nothing on this wall, there's nothing here. And so I'm introducing a pedestal, pilaster, cornice, and everything, and then introducing a chair rail. I'm also going to raise this height, okay, lower this height, so that my door frame, right, my door has the same kind of pedestal, and then the side light would be above it, right? And then this light from the door would actually come down a little bit farther. And then, they got another pedestal on this other side, so that now this proportioning system that I put in here also begins to tie into the door, right? Also begins to tie into the other side. So if I did put a panel in these pedestals, right, it would correspond to the height of the pedestal or height of the panels in the doors. And all of a sudden, all of the parts and pieces inside here start to unify. You'll see the same thing when I sketched out this room here. You'll see that I've lowered this down, I've lowered this, I've fixed this column so that it's here. I've put my entablature, but look what's happening around these windows. I have the opportunity to introduce a pedestal, right, all the way along here and a chair rail into this room, and I think it starts tying things together, right? So when I take on my pedestal height, run it around the room, introduce a chair rail, that then all of a sudden begins to inform the size of my window surround. So this this window opening and everything else works, right? It's traditional in some form, and so introducing the pedestal, maybe a faux column, you don't even have to do that, but now I've got a chair rail. Look how it extends into the other parts of the house and starts pulling things together, and all of a sudden, just by really focusing on the chair rail, and I did a video a long time ago on chair rails, kind of the misunderstood chair rail, but it is the most important molding in the house sometimes because it can help tie and unify parts and pieces together to help start making the room make sense. And so when I show it, without that, and then show it with that, it does seem to, tie together better. I'm not going to put any more moldings than they put in here, right? I mean, they really went after the moldings, went crazy. All I'm going to do is I'm going to unify and pull these things together so that they make more sense. And then the last thing, that arch over the window, I don't know why I suspect this is a flex mold, okay? And they only had a certain length, but they put this piece in it to kick it up. I don't know why they didn't drop this down so that this whole thing could be dropped down so that your crown could run across. I don't get it. I don't know whether there's a lack of planning, but you'll see that I put that in, drop that down, and I think it makes more sense. But in order to unify, in order to pull a house together, moldings are a key element in doing that and can all of a sudden give a house in a room a little bit more repose, a little bit more strength. It makes more sense, right? Just visually, there's more of this, okay, I get it. So practicing this classical system, not inventing new moldings, but just practicing and using with the old one to get the proportion and the scale together really does make a big difference. Okay, guys. Better, right? Thumbs up. I think that the columns on different sizes and all those things was confusing. The chair rail is such an important molding that really can unify and pull a lot of architectural elements together, pulling the window, pulling the door, pulling all those things together. So I think that helped a lot. Let me know what you think. I always read your comments. I'm Brent Hull. Thanks for watching.